Welcome to We're Not Gonna Take It, a podcast produced by Zero Prostate Cancer in partnership with Bayer. Today, our guest host is Twisted Sister's JJ French. He's a rocker, an author, and a prostate cancer survivor.
Hello, everyone. I'm JJ French, and my guest today is William King of the Commodores. William's a founding member of the funk and soul band, and like myself, is a prostate cancer survivor. And I want to thank William for joining me today. Thank you, man.
That's my pleasure. My pleasure. Glad to see you.
So, before we begin, I just want to establish a couple of things that I think people may want to be interested in. First of all, your band started in 68. My band started in 73. So we're celebrating our 50th anniversary this year. And You've obviously near like 55 years. So you and I are considered veterans of the music industry.
Without a doubt.
And be veterans of the industry. In case you don't know much about my band was started by an African-American drummer named Mel Anderson, whose brother Al Anderson was Bob Marley's lead guitar player. So in 1973, Twisted Sister and Bob Marley had in common two brothers, in case you didn't know. It's kind of interesting. Also, I can, after reading the history of the Commodores and understanding the era that you came from, what most young people don't understand today is the era that you and I came from was a much more homogenized era in which the musicians tended to love each other regardless of what genre they came from. It wasn't splintered out. It wasn't like, who's the number one? Today, you don't even know who's number one. There's so many charts.
That's right.
Back in our day, it was a chart.
That's right. That's right. Well, they were kind of split up basically about genres, but it was like R&B, pop, country and western, but it's very few, very, very few.
I think if you took out every Beatle or Beatle associated British invasion band and every Motown act from the charts from 1962 to 67, you would have nothing. You'd have nothing. People don't understand the total domination of these two musical forces that we came out of.
Right. It was more about the music back then. It was about songwriting,
Yeah, and there was a mutual respect too. I mean, there was a song by the Temptations, in which there was a line that said, "Population rising fast. The Beatles' new records are gas." That was in Ball of Confusion. You never heard that today.
Yeah, Norman Whitfield produced that. Yeah.
So with that, let us move forward to the issue at hand, which is what you and I are both associated with. So tell me, how old were you when you were diagnosed with prostate cancer, and what was your what led to the diagnosis?
That was almost 10 years ago. I was 65. I was 65, and what led to it was the fact that when I went in for a test, my PSA was high, right, and so they decided that, something needed to be done right away. I wasn't so sure about what I wanted what I wanted them to do, whether it was radiation, whether it was surgery, whether it was robotic surgery. I mean, all these things were in front of me. But unluckily, I had a heart attack while I was in Africa. And so once I had the heart attack, of course, I had to have surgery for that. Then what that did was it threw me back about a year because they would no longer do the surgery for the cancer, for the prostate, because until my body healed from the heart attack surgery, right? So that threw me back a whole year. Finally, they decided they could do the surgery, and we decided to do robotic surgery, which everybody was hoping that would be the end of it, but it wasn't. About a year and a half later, maybe 2 years later, it came back. So then I was able to do radiation. Now, the quandary was to do radiation first or whether to do the surgery first. But what we decided on was if they had done the radiation first, I would not be able to have surgery if it came back. So, but if I had the surgery first, they would be able to do the radiation. So we decided to do robotic surgery, which, by the way, was pretty unique at the time. And I was in surgery for about 4.5 hours. 4.5 hours. They had to have two teams to do it.
When you were diagnosed, At the time that they told you you had prostate cancer, did they tell
Yes.
you that it was a stage, anything at that point? Like exactly how did they explain how far along this had become?
Yeah, no, I wasn't in like a stage 3 or 4. I wasn't in that kind of predicament. They were trying to get it as early as they could, which is why my heart attack really set me back, because that was really when they first found it, right? And they felt really good about the fact that they could get it and get it very early, and it probably would not come back.
So
Yeah.
did you had a biopsy, obviously, which determined,
Yes.
correct, that you did
Right.
have prostate cancer. So when the biopsy came back as positive,
Yes.
what was what was the reaction for you, your family at that moment when you were confronted with that reality?
Well, I tell you this. I was in the doctor's office. They called us in, my wife and I. And once he told me I had cancer, just the word cancer, right? I went into like a zombie state. It's like I heard a hum in my ears, right?
Yeah, I understand.
And like he was talking and I could see his mouth moving,
Yeah.
but I did not understand any of the words he was saying.
It was traumatic, wasn't it, to hear it?
It was very traumatic. And all of a sudden I could feel my wife squeezing my hand, right? And then she leaned over to me because she was looking at me and she said, excuse me. She said, don't worry, I got this. Okay, she said, I heard everything he said, and we're gonna beat this. So,
William, how important is it to have somebody with you when you hear a diagnosis like that? Because you can't process it on your own. You need somebody to be able to hear what the doctor said. In this case, it was your wife, correct?
yeah. And I tell you, without her in there, man, I don't know what I would have done.
Tell me this, was there any history of prostate cancer in your family prior to this?
No. Well, in my case, I don't know, because my father was killed when he was 21 in the Korean War.
Wow.
And my grandfather, his father, was killed in his 40s, right? So, it was I didn't have anybody to really bounce off of, right? And my grandfather on my mother's side, he lived to be 94, I think, 94, 95. And I don't ever remember him having to go into surgery for cancer or hearing about it. So no, from my perspective, there was no history of it, because on one side they didn't live long enough, and on the other side there was none.
So prior to the diagnosis, you really had no connection with prostate cancer. You never really read much about it, right? It wasn't going to happen to you, so you didn't really know probably much about it.
You hit the nail right on the head. You know, because
so
I had been fine all my life.
Yeah. My father died of prostate cancer. My brother had prostate cancer. So I always thought all the tofu in the world wasn't going to change the diagnosis when it came to me. So I was aware. So when I finally heard the words, I was prepared for it, but you're still never prepared to hear that it finally developed into prostate cancer.
That's
you know,
right. That's
you
right.
never want to hear those words. So tell me this.
Unbelievable, the shock value. I mean, the shock of it
was amazing, isn't it?
It was amazing. Yeah.
So now here we are. Prostate cancer, people with prostate cancer, and all of a sudden you start reading about prostate cancer, like, oh my God, like you have to educate yourself, right? You got to really educate yourself.
That's right.
Did you know, or did you eventually learn that 1 in 6 Black Americans are diagnosed with prostate cancer? In other words, it's a higher percentage of African Americans.
I mean, that's one of the first things that I was told. I mean, the doctor told me that.
Okay.
Right. So it was very, very in front of me. Which added to the fear factor, right? So I just sometimes you think that you can get around things, or you can forget about things, or not worry you. I mean, it was a constant with me from the day he said it for a while. I got to tell you, yeah. So
tell me about your support system. You mentioned your wife. Who else in the family or friends were helping you through this journey?
Oh man, you know what? That's one of the great things about having a close family. My kids, I have 4 kids, and they were so into what was going on with me. And I have 3 sons, and my oldest is 40, 44, 45. And I told him, you have got to start now, right? And his brother, my next one is 42. And then the next one is 39. So, all of them are right in that area where they need to start getting checked, going to the doctor for it. But in my case, they were always there. They would call, they would want to know what I was doing at night. Some of them would call, 2 o'clock in the morning. And I'd say, why are you calling me at 2 o'clock in the morning? They said, you're usually up anyway. So, I just wanted to check in on you. I said, well, I'm not up at 2 o'clock in the morning anymore. But
but the love surrounding you helped you get through this. Obviously,
that's right.
That's the important thing.
That's
so,
right. Go ahead.
Here's the interesting thing. You mentioned that you had robotic surgery.
Yes.
I had robotic surgery too. How did they describe to you the different options, and why did you ultimately take the one that you took?
Okay, this has been a while back. So let me see if I can reach back in my head here and pull this up. There was 3, if I remember correctly, 3 options basically, right? That was presented to me. It was 3 or 4. Let me see. One, of course, was robotic. Then we had the one, oh God, I can't think of the name of it right now, where
seeds? Did they offer you the seed option?
They offered me the seeds. That's
right.
Correct.
People don't understand that. These are seeds. These are pellets, radioactive pellets.
That they actually
place into you to
right.
kill the cancer. Do you remember, by the way, what your PSA and your Gleason score was at the time that you had to do this operation?
My PSA was 11.
Wow. Okay. So was mine. Mine was 11.3 when they finally did it.
Yeah.
Did they tell you what your Gleason score was by any chance?
I'm sure they did, but off the top of my head, I don't remember it.
Okay. But because the Gleason score determines also in a lot of ways which way they think is more favorable to go. Because again, you and I realized we have to learn a lot about something that we didn't really want to learn about, so we had to learn a lot about it. So because you've had both an operation and radiation, the side effects, you've been exposed to side effects from all of them, because every one of these has side effects. So let's not beat around the bush, men, as men are listening to you and me right now. We're trying to save lives. So let's be straightforward here. Can you elaborate a little bit on the side effects of each one, if you wish? I mean, I can tell you, I'll tell you what mine were. I mean, I had incontinence for a while, on my prostatectomy, and I had sexual dysfunction. I mean, that's really what went down. Let me ask you about the incontinence part. My incontinence lasted about a year, and then eventually it stopped. I had to do training. I had to go to a therapist, an actual physical therapist, who had to do incontinence training for me to learn how to stop. Did you have to go through any of that, or did it just go by itself?
No, I did. I went through, probably a month.
Okay.
First time, and I had to go back another time, right? But it's the old story. When you go in, you have to do it right? You have to have a mindset that I'm going to do this, right? And I think most people who don't have that mindset, and I went in without that mindset, right? I was just going to do this and get out of there, right? And your practice, you have to do it every day, 3 times a day. But you have to do it. See, that's the problem. So you have to do it, and it's like exercising. Most people start off really well, and then they kind of ease up as they go along. And all of a sudden, it goes into 0. I did that the first time, right? But you pay the price, because when you first start off, it seems like you can see the result, right? So once you see results, kind of like, okay, I got this. I'm good. But what we fail to understand is you have to keep it going, right? So because if not, then you don't see results anymore.
You're right.
Fall off, and that happened to me. So
What William is saying here is that not only do you deal with prostate cancer, but you have to be smart enough to understand the whole picture, the entire process. It's not just the fact that, oh my God, you've heard words that you don't want to hear, which is you've got prostate cancer. But once you process that, man, you have got to educate yourself. You have got to read. You have to learn. You have to understand the whole process, because the more you do, the more you will be more equipped to handle all of the parts.
See, and that's the thing. See, it's a mindset, right? It's like a diet. It's not just doing what it says. You got to have a mindset to do these things. For instance, my second time around, you know what? I would sit in the car and do those exercises, because you can be anywhere, right? but I would do it in the car, right? I do it on the airplane. I would do it because before I wasn't doing that. I just had this set time. I would try to do it during the day, and then, but after that, when I learned and I got to understand it, and that's the key to it all, is you have to understand why you're doing it. So, but once you understand it, you say, oh, I get that, okay. And if I don't do this, I won't be able to go over here and do this. So
Right.
I'm doing this. And so that's what really got me across. And all of a sudden your life starts to get back to normal again.
So my band retired from live performing in 2016. Okay. And I was diagnosed in 2018. So I didn't have the pressure of having to do something professionally while I was healing. I could just heal because I was off. I was done. I had like a year in my head. I said, for a year, whatever I have to do, I'll do under no pressure. Were you, when you were diagnosed, still playing? How did it affect your professional career in dealing with the prostate cancer at the time that you had the surgery? Could you continue as normal? Did you have to, did you take a break? Tell me how it impacted your profession.
No, I kept going. I did a lot of exercising and stuff before the surgery. And so my body was, and I'm a tournament tennis player. So I'd always worked out a lot, right?
Wow, okay.
So having a strong body going into something is unbelievable. It helps you so much to come back out of that, right? To retain your strength again, get those muscles back and all that. And I was lucky in the fact that I had been doing that all along because of playing tennis.
Sure. So,
I was used to being out on the court, 6-7 hours a day, right? So it really, really helped me.
So outside of the initial, whatever, 12 weeks, 16 week, however way that the healing of your core because of the surgery has to do,
I went right back.
It did not impede your day-to-day routines, is what you're saying.
No, and and the doctors were very emphatic about me not sitting around or laying around. They were very emphatic. I said, well, you don't have a problem there because I may be doing it too much. Mm-hmm. And one of the things that helped me a lot was during the period that I was recuperating from the surgery, we were taking off anyway. So we didn't have to cancel anything. We didn't have to cancel shows, any of that. I did miss 2 shows. And one was because the gig was already booked, and I had to make a decision whether to do the surgery the day before or the day after. And you know what? I just said, let's just do it and get it done, right? I don't, So I think I only missed two shows the entire time.
Wow.
That was it. Yeah.
Wow. You're like Keith Richards, huh? You just keep going and going and going and going and going.
I keep plugging those batteries in, man.
Uh-huh. So, you mentioned how important your wife was and your family support was, and that from a hereditary standpoint, you can't trace back your prostate cancer. Like I can trace back my prostate cancer. But when you finally had to confront it, and you were telling me you sat down with your sons, how did your sons respond, and did they follow up and take your advice to being extremely vigilant now in terms of their PSAs? How often do they get their blood tests, for example?
You know what they do? They go twice a year and get it done. I think my oldest boy said that the doctor recommended he just do it once a year.
Okay.
But at first they were really in shock because they had never seen their father down, right? I had always been very athletic and running around, and either I had tennis rackets in my hand, they saw me running down the court, or I was on a plane. I was just consistently going. So this was a shock for them to see me down, and I think it was really a shock to my third son because he took it to heart more, like this can happen to me, right? I think before he thought he was like his father, and there was nothing going to happen to him. He could go through, he would be 105 and he'd still be doing, what he was doing. He'd be like, wait a minute, he got knocked off his horse here. That could happen to me.
Yeah, but you know what though? What you did will probably save their life if it does grow into something like that.
That's right. Now, having when you asked me about history, their grandfather on their mother's side died from prostate cancer.
Oh, okay.
Right. So I explained.
Did you know that before you were diagnosed with prostate cancer, by the way?
Yes.
You did.
I was there during that whole process when he died.
All right.
Right. Yeah. So, I really laid that on very heavy. I mean, very thick on them, that they now, they have it on both sides of their family.
Right.
Okay.
Did you ever get tested for the BRCA gene, by the way? Do you know the BRCA gene for breast cancer and prostate cancer? It seems to be a bellwether too, as to I don't know if the family has done any of those kinds of DNA.
You know what? I don't think I did. I don't remember doing that. Maybe the doctors did it without, saying anything to me, because they did some other things that I found out later, but I don't think so.
Well, you've done, apparently you have educated your sons in the right way to be able to watch themselves. But, but many men are hesitant to be screened for prostate cancer because they don't want to hear about this stuff because of the sex angle and all that other stuff, So whether it's due to the stigma of testing or just the lack of prioritization, what is your message? And this is the important thing, because when I have people like you, who are influential people, who people look up to, who've created an amazing life and an amazing history. It takes people like you, like me, like the lead singer for Judas Priest, and anyone else you can get, to actually just remind them that we're all human beings and we're all susceptible to these things. And what is your message to the men who may be nervous, to your fans who may be nervous or hesitant to be screened for prostate cancer? What do you want to tell them?
Well, I can't say to you over the air what I said to my friends that I see all the time, right? The way that I put it to them, right?
Uh-huh.
But I will say,
make a more of a GP version of what you said. Okay.
Yeah. Everybody thinks that they are immune to a lot of things, and no man that I know wants to hear that he has to have a knife put near his genital area, right? It's like taboo. It's like, I'm never going to do that, right? Men are so afraid. And so they have to get past the fact of being afraid. And what I always say to them is, look, the bottom line is, you spend 2 hours. You spend 2 hours, you go in the doctor's office, they do the test on you, and you're out of there, right? Now, the second thing is the fear of waiting to hear whether or not you have cancer or not. Right? And I tell them all, what's your favorite thing to do? Find out what you do that for a day or two. Just block out and try to go. If your favorite thing is watching baseball, watch baseball just about all day long. Find something that you like to do to get you through that period of time. Mine was when I was waiting on my test results. When my wife just came in one day, gave me a big hug, and put her legs around my James, and we were on the couch, and we just laid on the couch all day. You know what I mean, right?
I do. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
Something, William, too, I think we should also say this for men, that it's not like an automatic that you go get a biopsy. It's a slow process. Like, first you go to the doctor and you have a blood test. And then the blood test may or may not show something. And
That's
then
right.
a digital exam, and that may or may not show something. Then they may do an MRI that may or may not show something. It's a process before you get to down the line. But for men who just avoid the whole process is crazy.
Yeah.
You can't avoid it. You have to be able to say to yourself, okay, step one, I'm going to make that doctor appointment, and I'm going to have a blood test and see where we stand. And then from there, a digital exam, meaning a finger feels through your rectum to see if the prostate feels weird, right? A lot of guys freak out about that. I mean, a lot of guys freak out about that. I don't want someone doing that. Well, I got news for you. You know what? I'd rather have somebody doing it and find out I got nothing than wind up, having something, right?
The bottom line to all of them, again, you ask me what I tell my friends, I say to them all the time, you just got to go start the process. You got to start the process, and at least just say, I'm going to do the first part. Right? I'm going to do the first part. But then on two of my friends, which they're just crazy. I went to their wives. And so I got on their wives, and it was their wives who got them to go through it. Right? I said, you can't let him, but one of them, that his father had died from it. Right? And he just refused to go. Right? So I went to the wife and I said, look, you got to go to him and you got to make him do this. Don't cook for him. Don't do whatever, right? You got to make him go. Of course, he goes and he finds out he has it.
Yeah.
Right.
You know, that is a perfect response to my next question, which is, do you have any advice for the people who have loved ones and living with prostate cancer?
Yeah.
I mean,
Yeah.
what advice do you give the families of members with
Yeah, they
prostate
got to
cancer?
stay on them about it, right?
Let me ask you this question. Do you have any advice for the doctors treating people with prostate cancer, things you wish they told you that they didn't tell you?
I wish that they had said to me early on about the things that you could use to help you through it, right? And first, it was all about the process of how to deal with it. But there was nothing about the back side of it, right? I wish they had talked a little bit about the backside. I mean, just a little bit. I mean, nobody wants to go there early on because they're still getting used to the fact that they've got to deal with what it takes to try to cure the cancer, right? But that's what I wish. I wish they had talked about the backside. And once I realized that, man, I jumped on it myself. You know?
Did you know when it came back and you had to have radiation?
Yes.
Do you remember how they told you? Did you had to keep going back for PSA tests? And
That's
the
right.
PSA, and it started to climb again, correct?
That's right. Now,
And so
go ahead. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
no, I'm sorry. I was just going to ask you, what number did it hit before they said to you, you know, we need to take follow-up procedures here?
7.
Okay.
7.
Oh, so it went up. Wow. So it went to 0 with the prostatectomy, right? And then how long a period of time before it climbed back up again?
Almost 2 years.
Wow, 2 years it went that much. So they
now
had
it went originally when the first rise was 2, if I remember correctly.
Mhm.
Then it kind of like jumped,
Mhm.
right? They told me, look, come back 6 months. We'll see what it's like in 2 months. Man, it had jumped to like 4 or 5, somewhere in there.
Right.
And so they said, well, look, I think we're going to have to do something. And when I went back next time, it was 7. They said, but we got to deal with this right now.
Right.
It was really aggressive the second time around, more aggressive than it was the first time.
Mhm.
All right. So that kind of scared everybody. I could even tell it in my doctor's voice when he was telling me, you know, we got to do something now. So you need to block out your schedule and get in here. We need to set it up.
And
so
today you're good today.
Today I'm at 0.
Yeah.
And I had that was 3 years ago.
Yeah. You know, I tell people, I said, people say to me, well, you had prostate cancer, you're cancer free. I said, once you have cancer in your head, you're never cancer free.
Never.
Once you have cancer, you have to understand cancer is a microscopic disease. And all it takes is one cell to get out, travel around your body and find a home.
Find one place. That's right.
So even though I don't have it today, I could have it tomorrow. So I just wake up every day and go, today I don't have it, but I could have it again, which means you never take your eye off the ball, William, ever.
You never take your eye off the ball. Look, I'm a fighter, man. You know, if it comes back, we got to go to work, right? Look, I'm 73 years old. I'm going to at least 150.
Well, William, I love your attitude, man. I really love your attitude.
You got to fight through it. I don't care whether it's the band members, you got to fight for your life, man. I don't, you know, like I said, I'm 73. I don't understand people who want to give up. And I know that there are all kinds of reasons. Don't get me wrong. I'm not telling anybody short here or saying that, you know, something is wrong or whatever. But I will say this. If you don't fight for whatever it is you want, you don't get it. And your life is the most important thing. It's all you, without that, when I first went down with my heart attack, I realized what it was like not to have good health. Because I'd had not good health, but great health until I was 65 years old, right? I don't even know what to tell you, but I felt great. I'd go hit that tennis ball every day. I'd be on the court. I could play 2 or 3 sets in the morning, 2 or 3 sets in the afternoon. Got home, no aches and pains. I know that, but then one day it went.
And it can go and can happen in one day, which is why we have to take it one day at a time. We have to have faith in our family. We have to have faith in our faith. We have to have faith in the people around us. You have to educate yourself when it comes to prostate cancer. You really have to be aware of it. And listen, William,
let me say this right quick.
Please.
You can't do it alone. You cannot do it alone. Go find somebody. You know, you got to find somebody to be there with you. And you got to fight you really have to fight.
Well, William King, founding member of one of the most famous R&B funk bands in the world, the Commodores, have had #1 songs and has sold millions of records and has played around the world, and is a veteran of probably 55 years worth of playing. It's nice to talk to a guy who's a little older than me, who's played a couple more years than me, so I don't feel like the oldest man in the room every time I talk. I want to thank you for being so honest with your journey to prostate cancer. It really helps people. It will help people. What you've done today, you know, the cliche, if it helps one guy, if it helps one person, we've saved a life today, haven't we?
That's right. That's exactly right.
You've been listening to We're Not Gonna Take It, a podcast produced by Zero Prostate Cancer in partnership with Bayer. To learn more about prostate cancer and to listen to more We're Not Gonna Take It podcast, go to zerocancer.org/WNGTI.